First speaker is Professor Mark Steyvers, Cognitive Sciences.
Okay, so I'll talk about topic models for annotating psychotherapy transcripts. This is truly interdisciplinary research with our own Mark Smith, some colleagues in clinical psychology and counseling, and Garen Gowd is the graduate student who did most of the work. So we're interested in analyzing text, unstructured text. We have a lot of text everywhere. So we're interested in understanding sort of the topics covered by newspaper articles, or search queries, or emails, blogs, etc. And so over the last couple of years, we've done a lot of work in these areas. But now a completely new sort of area for research is understanding dialogue. Dialogue in the context of psychotherapy. And this data didn't even exist until a couple of years ago. So it's pretty small. So we have 1,400 sessions of a patient talking to a therapist, or it could be in the context of marital therapy or drug counseling. And this is very important to understand what people are saying to each other, because it's the primary means to understand if a therapy is working or not. So we've developed topic models. We've worked on topic models. It's a statistical text mining algorithm that allows you to extract the semantic themes from text in an automatic and unsupervised fashion. This is very popular in machine learning and also in cognitive science, because these algorithms sort of mimic some operation of the human mind. So here are some example topics extracted from this model from the New York Times. So each topic represents a probability distribution over words. And here I'm showing you the top 10 words from each of these distributions. If you look at these word sets, you can actually sort of infer a label, and these are my subjective labels for these topics. Now the model is a very simple probabilistic model. It assumes that text in documents can be produced as mixtures of these topics. Right? So this document might be 70% about terrorism and 30% about Wall Street firms. And it's a very simple set of probabilistic sampling steps that explains the number of words in each document. Now, we don't know what these topics are a priori. We need to infer them, right? And so we need to infer the contents of these topics, the probability distributions. We also need to infer how these are mixed over each document. And this is a very complex Bayesian inference problem. This was infeasible or intractable until about 15 years or so. And now we have very efficient Markov chain Monte Carlo algorithms such that we can process all of the New York Times or all of Wikipedia in a matter of hours or days in some cases. So now we're starting to apply these models to psychotherapy data. So we have dialogue between patient and therapist over many talk turns. It's very dynamic, over many sessions. We have very labor-intensive coding schemes. So it's a person who applies these subject labels to sessions. We have content coding from experts that say, okay, the therapist was very empathic here, less empathic here. Number of reflections and questions. Is the patient talking about changing his or her behavior? That's very important. It might signal sort of, good outcomes. And we also analyze audio with some colleagues at USC. So ultimately, we want to predict long-term outcomes. So what patients are likely to recover, what type of therapies work. But in the meantime, because we have very few long-term outcomes, we try to indirectly predict outcomes through this intermediate content coding scheme. So our first goal is to take the text and predict the degree of empathy, predict the subject of conversation, and then use that to look at long-term outcomes. So I won't have time to go into the details of this specific model. This is a supervised topic model where the model learns associations between labels, like subject labels, symptom labels, and individual words in the dialogue. Now, one nice feature of the model is that each word, it doesn't have to go to a specific label. It can go to multiple labels depending on the context. And you can see that the model has learned sort of reasonable distributions over words that are clearly related to the label. This is a busy slide. The details don't really matter here. We can use the model to annotate new sessions, sessions that the model has never seen before. And the goal of the model here is to come up with a set of labels that accurately describes the session. And the model's performance here is measured by AUC, the area under the curve. The point that I just want to make is that the label topic model performs fairly well, and somewhat surprisingly performs better than standard discriminative machine learning techniques like logistic regression. Now, a more interesting application of the model is to drill down into the dialogue and find periods in the conversation where a specific topic was discussed. So if you have a session that dealt broadly with depression, that doesn't mean that the whole conversation was about depression. But you can use the model to flag individual talk turns that are very likely to be about a certain topic. So this talk turn was flagged by the model as being very representative for depression. Note there's not a single occurrence of the word depression. It's about a person crying, and I don't care, and I'm crying, it sounds somewhat sad, etc. But the model has learned that talking about crying and being sad is associated with depression. So, how am I doing on time? Ooh, I'm going very fast. Okay. So, we're now seeing these kinds of statistical text mining algorithms being applied to lots of new areas in social sciences and humanities. And I think for these algorithms to be more successful than they already are, we need to improve their representation of the data. So Kurt mentioned that most sort of machine learning applications, you can think about a matrix, right? And these algorithms take a matrix as input, word by document, and counts. Like how many times does a word occur in a document, or a talk turn. Now I think we need to do more work here and think very carefully about the order of words, right? The order matters. And so we're working now on developing more structured linguistic representations that are difficult to handle. We're working also on taking the raw audio as input to a topic model, and then going from there to predict long-term outcomes. Now one key problem, I think for sort of any data-driven algorithm is how you can combine this sort of purely bottom-up process of discovering patterns with pre-existing human domain knowledge. Often we use these text mining algorithms as sort of proof of concept, like, the model has discovered this topic, like all color words. But that's kind of silly, we already knew what the color words are. So how can we use these models to discover something new? And how do we validate it? How do we validate this? And I think that's a challenge in general for these data discovery algorithms. And just in the interest of time, I'll leave it here. Thank you.